3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Crossing the Streams. React on Titan is the subject today. I am joined by a huge panel of friends and experts in the field, I would say. People who have really been invested in this show for quite some time now. Some day ones, including myself, some people who came in later in the game, but are as passionate as everyone else. I'm really happy to have them all here today. We're going to get started. Like what this show is, we're inviting people from different platforms, different services. Right now, it is primarily reactors for this show because Attack on Titan played such a huge pivotal role in the reaction genre, the community, and the way lots of channels sort of developed and introduced themselves to anime. So I really want to sort of examine that, as well as the show and just how impactful the show was to us on a personal level and the themes, messages, all that stuff. So we're going to get started right now. So joining me today is my good co-host, Adonis Cabrera, for First Cut. I know him as Ace Cabrera from our old days in the Schmodown. Andres, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. I'm excited.
I'll just talk to you first. You had a show for so long called Attack on Titan. We had some of these guests on, and I always turned in to watch it because the show invites examination and discussion, yes, especially for those who remain unspoiled, for the remainder of the show. And I was really excited to kind of like dive into that. I was on the show a couple times with you, and now you're here, so we've come full circle, thankfully.
Yeah, it's insane. It's crazy how long this show's been going on and just how much it means to so many people. So I'm glad to have this amazing panel here.
Yeah. We'll get started here. So up top, from all the way from Australia, thank you for coming in early in the morning, man. I appreciate it. It is Adonis Xavier, SS Jutsu. Thank you so much, man.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, great to be here. It is a little early for me. I had a very late night, but it's all good. And I'm excited to talk about some Attack on Titan.
And then on the flip side, it is Lola from Serbia from LM Reactions. Thank you, Lola, for jumping in so late.
Thank you so much for having me. It's not that late. Like, it's fine. It's 11. Yeah. I don't go to bed before 4. But I'm very happy to be here to talk more about Attack on Titan if that's possible.
And then in the same time zone, thankfully, is Sonny from Cat and Sonny, all the way in Denmark. Thank you, man.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's same time here, a little over 11. But I am also the type of person who doesn't go to bed before 2, 3, sometimes 4, depending on what I'm doing, how much editing I have left. Although I should go to bed earlier because I have a little kid now. So that's I'll have to sort that out. But I'm happy to be here and talk some more Attack on Titan with all of you.
Thank you, man. And next is Ataku May from Scotland.
Yes, Scotland. So I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. No matter what time it is, like it's 10 here, I will talk about Attack on Titan or anime. It doesn't matter what time it is. So I'm so happy to be here and so excited to talk and allow all my remaining thoughts about the anime.
Yeah. And then we have Omni Media joining in. Omni, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. I have my channel, at least, I don't dabble in a whole lot of anime. I've been very scared of that territory. I watch a lot of it on my own, but like I was partially through Attack on Titan's final season, just watching it on my own time. And I was like, there's no way I can't not put this up because this is insane.
Totally.
But representing Webiginia over here in the US.
Yeah. And then I'm going to jump over to Sean from TankTop. You may know him from the famous Burlington Bar Game of Thrones reaction videos, but he is a great reactor in his own right. Sean, thank you so much for being here.
What's up, y'all? Yeah, it's Sean TankTop over here in Chicago, Illinois, the big 606. And I just want to say thank you very much to Eric and Andres and Nerd Chronic and everything like that for giving us another opportunity for a little bit of methadone to replace the heroin that has been Attack on Titan. You know what I mean? So like I know I'm not saying that I'm speaking for everybody, but I think that like that we can all say that it's going to be hard to kind of let go of this show, and so any opportunity to kind of ruminate about this finale and everything is a great opportunity. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. And then we have also my good friend Abi Corinne from her channel, Abi Corinne.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm representing the Pacific Northwest, City of Roses, Portland. Really, really excited to be here with all of you because, like you all, Attack on Titan has impacted my life, and it makes you think, it makes you look at the world, and I'm just excited to share views with everyone. We're going to do a whole little like Hanji sit down, have a cup of soup, hang out.
And then last but not least, certainly not, it is Rafael Motamayor. It is the famous Rafael, who just did a really fantastic interview in the New York Times with Isayama himself. Rafael, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This show literally gave me a career, and I'm just very happy to just talk about it forever.
Yeah, and we're happy to have your expertise here today. So yeah, like I said, we're going to dive into the show or discussions right now. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about with the show, and if we were to talk about the whole thing, we'd be here all day. So we're going to kind of keep our thoughts focused on the finale, I think, and kind of like the messages and themes in that we kind of want to ruminate on, as Sean said. And so we're going to jump right into it. So we're going to have questions that we're going to pitch to everyone here first, and we're going to get your thoughts on the sort of brunt of the your experience with it. First up for me is I want to ask, so to Adonis, when did you start Attack on Titan? Not just for the channel, but for yourself as well. How much did it impact your relationship with anime? Like, was it something you were introduced you to it or not? And what was your experience like with the viewers on the channel, in the fandom, so on?
Yeah, it was so interesting because at the time I was still living in the States. So I was in Vegas at the time and huge anime fan already, but it was the first anime that I watched that I had coworkers that weren't into anime actually watching a show, which was so interesting to me because I was like, they're like, oh, have you seen Attack on Titan? I was like, what do you know about Attack on Titan? Like, I was so confused, and they're on their lunch break, like, oh, the last episode was crazy. Like, and it was such a cool experience because, I mean, I'm 36. So having people growing up, you know, if you guys are in that era, you remember when nobody talked about watching anime. That wasn't a cool thing to do at all, right? So me being at work, at the workplace, and people talking about, have you seen the latest episode? It was like the coolest feeling. I was like, hold on, we're talking about anime right now? So yeah, it was just an exciting moment, I think, for people that had never seen an anime before, kind of getting introduced, and me watching that happen in real time was like a cool experience. And it was just such a different feel of a show that I'd ever seen before. It was so serious, and it was littered with like, you know, series of reveals. It was just so, I was so excited about it. It was a crazy first episode. Like I absolutely loved that first season. But I think it was because of the cultural impact that it had around, you know, the people around me that I was more excited about than just me enjoying it with other random anime fans that I would come across online. Because at the time I wasn't doing reactions at all. So it was just a cool experience, full stop.
Awesome. And then I'm going to jump over to Mai, because Mai is kind of like May. May is kind of a anime expert. Your channel focuses primarily on anime, and so that's really you sort of bread and butter, and you know so much about the space. What was your experience with Attack on Titan in the same vein? Like, when did you start it? What was your experience like with the channel going through it?
So I started Attack on Titan before I had my channel. I've only had my channel for 3 years, but Attack on Titan, I didn't start it when it started airing in 2013. I was much later. I wasn't even watching anime back then. So I started in 2019, just when we had season 3, part 1, and I was waiting for part 2 soon after. And it was great to start it. I had heard about it for like ages since I started anime, I think, but I'd never really give it a shot because when I first started watching anime, I was more into just like the slice of life, shoujo-y kind of stuff. Not really like the action kind of stuff. But then it was actually on Netflix back then, season 1. And so I decided to give it a shot then. And it was one of the best decisions of my life to start the anime and to dive into it. And I remember I just finished exams at that point. So I just kind of binged it all after as like a reward to myself. And wow, it was so different than anything I'd watched. Because again, I only watched kind of romance, shoujo-y, slice of life stuff. So I didn't watch something like dark and gritty and stuff like that. So it was very different, but in the best way. Like, I enjoyed everything about it. And then watching it with the fandom along, like I only had Instagram back then. I hadn't started Twitter or YouTube. So I just kind of go on Instagram after every new episode, watching it weekly. I remember that when season 3, part 2 started airing and everyone was like, when's the episode coming? When's it coming? And then we were all like waiting for it. And back then there was a lot of problems with airing and stuff over here. But yeah, with the fandom, it was really great just seeing everyone talk about it. And then the biggest thing was when I started my channel, and I started just before season 4 started. And reacting to Attack on Titan was such an amazing experience. Like, I love it already and I have a great time with it, but being able to share that experience with other people and going to the comments each week, obviously after spoilers removed, because we all know how spoilers are with Attack on Titan. But yeah, going into the comments, talking about it, seeing everyone's thoughts, and then going on Twitter and seeing it trending every week as well was so amazing. That like feeling that everyone's experiencing the same thing as you and everyone's going through it, is enjoying it with you. I think it just only enhances the enjoyment. So for me, like, Attack on Titan became even that much more special when I started reacting to it.
Right. That's fantastic. And then jumping over to Lola from LM Reactions. Lola, what was your experience with the channel? Because I know you started it in the last few years for the channel itself.
Yes, I think this was the first anime that we have watched. Like, both of us watched animes when we were like younger. Like, I remember my favorite thing when I was growing up was Naruto. But like, besides that, neither one of us really just watched anime. And so a lot of people were always asking for it, and we're like, sure, let's just start there. I don't think we were even prepared for what it was, really. Like, I think like it immediately starts. Like, I feel like I was crying on episode 3 already, and I don't even know like why. I don't know. Something was happening. But it was just such an amazing experience, especially like it being our first anime. I think like I was never one of the people that like viewed anime as like a lesser form of television or something like that. Like, I just never necessarily watched it myself. But like watching Attack on Titan, and when we were like close to the end, I was like, oh, this is like my favorite story, regardless of like if it's live action, book, whatever it is. Like, this is just in my top 5 of anything I have ever seen. And so like it was really cool to immediately get an anime that can be just such a well-developed story to just rise up immediately.
Right. Yeah, it really is a fantastic story. And Sonny, what was your experience like with the show itself and the channel as well?
Oh, well, like to begin with, just touch on the whole like anime subject, as many of the others have already been talking about. Like, it was never a big thing here in Denmark either. It has always been sort of a niche, and I guess to some extent it still is. So I didn't have any friends who watched anything anime. I was never really, it never popped up on television or anywhere else. So like the first time, or like when we really got into anime, it was because of like joining this online community, and then all of a sudden having people recommend stuff to us when we started the reaction channel. And I had watched not a lot of anime, if anything at all. Like, the only thing that I had watched, or we had watched on the channel, was Naruto, and can't even find those reactions any longer because too many copyright strikes, and I just have to take them down. But going from Naruto and then jumping into Attack on Titan, that was a whole different world. And I personally fell in love with Attack on Titan immediately because of the world that they create. Like, I am a sucker for just like doing the deep dive into these fictional universes and trying to learn everything. But also because Attack on Titan, like we started relatively late. We started in 2021. So there was already a lot of Attack on Titan out there. So just starting to like dive into that, I didn't want to get spoiled or anything. So it was difficult to do that deep dive, but I still felt like if every time we watched an episode, I just wanted to keep going, could never, ever stop. And then learning about the very, 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 shall we say, invested fan base as well. that was not a new thing, because like I'm a very big Star Wars fan as well, so I know about people having opinions. But with Attack on Titan, like when we reached like certain episodes and so on, it was like, whoa, this is a lot. We're gonna have to take a step back from the whole interacting thing, but it didn't diminish our love for the series at all. And then here all the way to the end, just love it, and I'm so happy we get to talk some more about it today, because just after finishing the finale, my head was, I don't know about you guys, but I almost couldn't talk about it immediately after. So having this time to let all of it sink in and then have a discussion, that's I've been looking forward to this. So yeah, did that answer all the questions?
Yes, that's great. Thank you so much, man. I'm gonna jump over to Abby. Actually, Abby, I know when you started watching it several years ago, you were actually scared to watch it. You were scared of
I have
yeah.
I have a completely different take than all y'all, which makes me weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, and this is coming from me who loves blood and guts. Like I'm a big fan. I grew up watching Hellsing, like the series and the OVA. A lot of like Gundam Wing, a lot of Rurouni Kenshin. So like I love all the actions and stuff. But when I got to Attack on Titan, when it first came out, I didn't make it through that first episode. Like I had a moment. If you've seen the movie, spoiler alert, if you've seen Akira, and the moment where the girl's getting crushed, and you know that sick feeling you feel, like that's what I felt when you know the whole scene happened with Eden's mom, and I was just like, I gotta tap out. I can't do this. So I took a couple years off from it, and then tackled it again, and I'm so glad I did, because obviously, as many of you know, there's so many powerful themes in this great anime, on top of it just being amazing mystery, amazing characters that we get to just grow and love. Connie forever. It's just like, it's just an amazing journey. And I did it more so in isolation at first, but really, you know, taking off of my channel and talking to more people, it's just really cool. And what I think, is it Adonis? What he was saying was really important, because it's like a lot of people started talking about anime, and it's like in the Pacific Northwest, it's a very, you know, certain community. So it's like anime is not cool up here. It wasn't at first. So it's just like, it was really, really powerful to see more people getting hyped up about a show. And it's just like, okay, all right, we're here. Like finally anime has taken its place, and Attack on Titan did a great job kind of helping with that. Obviously Naruto, One Piece, like all those great ones did as well, but Attack on Titan just hit differently. So it's just really exciting. I don't know, the whole thing.
And then I'm gonna go back over to Omni. Omni, how was your experience watching the show for the channel, and how did you get invested in it?
Well, I started not when it kicked off. It was about when I think this first season ended. It was in the interim between season 1 and 2, and a bunch of people that I was friends with and working with were just nonstop hyping that up. And with anything else, like with anything, especially during that time when I was in school and stuff, like, you know, whether it be Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, or whatever, I was just like, yeah, everybody's talking about it. I'll get to it eventually, maybe. You know, just very in my own head half the time. And then I was just bored and just sat down and was like, all right, let's see what this Attack on Titan's about anyway. It was on Netflix and I played it and I was just like, next episode. And by like, I blink and I'm at the end of it and I'm like, no, where's the next one? Like I didn't, you know, I had a couple of people talking about, so like my experience with the fandom didn't really come too much until I started covering it on the channel, which was already in the second part of the final season, was when I was like, okay, maybe I'm comfortable with all the other show stuff we've been doing on the channel, because I was like, maybe I'll maybe see how some anime does over here, because this kind of been something I've just kind of kept for myself. And much like the themes of the show tackles, there was some opinions, some tribalism, that is for sure, as that is one of the major themes of the show, was where do you come from? Which side are you on? And like, can you see eye to eye on stuff? And like, it was like, clearly not.
There's some Jaegerists out there for sure. You know what I mean?
It was just like, like you guys said previously too, it kind of had more of an impact. Because like, I grew up on Dragon Ball Z, I'm a year younger than Adonis. So like, I'm very familiar with the kind of stigma it had growing up and all that. So it's like, it was wild to see one of them kind of break out of that. Everybody, casual or not, was like, oh, Dragon Ball Z Goku, punchy, fight. Fun. This was like the first thing I watched where I was just like, you had to think about it a little bit. There was a lot of other stuff going on. There was a lot of symbolism involved, much like the first episode or first season of Game of Thrones. There was like a hook that was different than anything else I was watching. There was a mystery box that J.J. Abrams would be envious of, like right out of the gate. and
never.
you're just like, I need answers. What is this? No. And
Mhm.
it didn't treat you like a child. It still had fun. You know, it still had a lot of the anime isms, you know, the over exaggerated like reactions, all the stuff you come to know, but like it treated its audience like adults, regardless of what it was doing. And just because it was gory or anything like that, you know, that aside, there was stuff that was there to get your brain active while you're running. You get invested in these characters, even like people who maybe had 2 scenes. I was like, no,
Right.
you know, it's like how did you do this to me? It was just a very different show than I've watched, and like, you know, it was just a fun ride. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I was like maybe benefited a little bit from not being like too deep in the woods about it and in the greater scheme of things until recently. But watching it in my isolation for so long, it was just fun, man. It was I haven't had anything else quite like it, unless it was like some big budget live action thing, you know. It's insane. It feels like it crossed boundaries in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely is a spectacle. And for you, Sean, what was your experience like getting into it for the channel itself? Because your channel had pivoted to solo reactions, pre-recorded reactions away from the bar around that time when it kind of kicked up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've sort of thought about it a little bit, and there is like, I feel like there is like kind of like a bit of a, I don't know, it's like a, like how what would you call it? Reactor, like kind of college or whatever it is. Like your first course could kind of be like GOT or something like that. Your second course should be Avatar: The Last Airbender to kind of get you into like animated material and stuff like that. And like, of course, you sort of blows up your preconceived notion of like what is like you know, a piece of like, you know, satisfying adult entertainment or what have you, and kind of crushes those barriers. And then you kind of your final thesis or sort of a summarization of those things is Attack on Titan, because that's kind of like how we went. Like we were doing like kind of a lot of Game of Thrones stuff that ended how that ended. And then we got done with, and then we got through ATLA, and that was such a wellspring, effervescent, lovely experience, you know. And then you kind of from there you go to AOT, which is like kind of a mix of both, like where I could definitely see like people think about Attack on Titan as like a gateway drug for normies to get into anime with like some of those like serious themes, because you know, like because there is like, you know, there's a lot of things, because I was like a very pish posh, like I'm gonna be 40 next year, like I'm a fucking old head, where it's like it was Suncoast Video in the tape section, and that was basically the only place where you could get anime and shit, you know what I mean? Like, and so can we curse on this, by the way? I'm sorry. like I'm like,
yes,
like okay, I mean, not that I'm going to curse more, but yeah, sorry. Okay, so no, but like, so that was sort of our relationship with the material at that time, and then us kind of coming into it, and it sort of kind of being this lovely marriage of like really kind of heady, powerful, current themes and stuff like that, and then also just like a kind of kinetic, like action shonen energy that is, you know, that it was just like a really good kind of marriage of like a bunch of different kind of things that we were kind of into. And then, you know, and now we're doing a bunch of anime, and we're kind of experiencing all these things for the first time and stuff. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of like, yeah. So yeah, we're walking down the graduation aisle, dun, 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 like, you know, with Attack on Titan with this one. And so it's been a lovely journey, and kind of, yeah, I mean, it's sort of been, I don't know, it's been a lovely experience as far as like kind of like our kind of needling through like that coming from like how different our stuff was before to what it is now, but being just as powerful as it was before and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, Jim, you're totally right. That is the evolution, as I've seen from everyone here, from the reaction channels like Game of Thrones, Last Airbender, Attack on Titan. It is
I'm not saying that there's like a recipe to like kind of get into reactions or whatever, but if you want to do that like thing, like that's like a 3 building blocks that can kind of like at least get people like you'll get some clicks, and it can kind of give you like a little cold base to start and stuff.
Absolutely. But away from the reactions, though, I want to get to our good friend Rafael. Rafael, you mentioned that this show kind of gave you a career. So what is your history with the show, and how did that develop for you?
So I started watching right before season 3. I think I got like the tail end of season 2, and by the time season 3 started, I just felt like this show, as everyone has said already, is such a gateway drug into anime. I grew up watching like Pokemon, Digimon, and all of their sort of knockoffs in a way. Like, I kind of stopped for a couple of years, and then just seeing Attack on Titan felt like watching something like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, like that sort of prestige TV, but with the kind of visuals and storytelling that you don't get with like a restricted media like live action in a way. And also because, as everyone has said already, like it was everywhere. Like from season 1 on, like every convention had like dozens of people, if not hundreds, dressed as the scouts and everything. So it was one of the first times that I saw anime being seen or discussed by non-anime fans as well. And by the time season 3 started, was around the time I started writing about movies and TV online, and I saw an opportunity that because there was an audience for this show, I started to be open about writing about anime because of Attack on Titan. They saw, well, the audience is there. Let's see how this goes. And from that, open to other shows. So I started just writing a column for Slash Film about Attack on Titan as a gateway anime for people who have never seen anime before, because it's simultaneously everything that you know and you like about anime, but at the same time it's very non-specifically Japanese in a way that it makes it universal. But at the same time, that story is it could only be told by a Japanese student, by a Japanese author. So it's a way to like bring people into this community. From there, yeah, just like the audience was there, so the editors were more receptive, and from there on, I just started building from it. Really
awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like as many of us have said, it is a really great gateway anime for, and that was like I think big thing for myself and for others as well. And I want to ask one more person here, Andres. What was your experience like with the show, getting into it, and then also building it for your channel? Your passion for it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of vary a little bit from most people here versus being a day one. So I'm definitely a day one back when it started. It was towards the tail end of season 1. So it's definitely a while back, but it's crazy to see where it's come from and what's become of it, I guess. It's insane, man, because I really do feel like everyone talking about how this is the new gateway anime. I know Rafael and I have talked before about how back in my era, it was the Dragon Ball Z. I grew up in the Dragon Ball Z era, and that was kind of the initial gateway anime to get you into everything else that's been happening afterwards. And now for the new generation of anime fans, whether they are old or young, Attack on Titan seems to resonate with them as the new gateway anime in order to get people into anime. But it's just so impactful as far as the emotion, the filmmaking of it all. That's something that's really big for me, because I really do feel like regardless of the medium, which is anime, I still feel like filmmaking is at its peak with Attack on Titan when it comes to shot selection, music, just acting. Everything is just top tier peak filmmaking in general, not just anime versus Hollywood, but just in general. I really do feel like Attack on Titan is some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen. And I think that's kind of what drove me towards making my channel. I did an entire series on season 2, which was insane because I got to see, well, I mean, you guys did it too, but the whole reveals, the whole thing that was going on in season 2
season 2 episode 6, dude. It's a mind melter, man. Like I can't even imagine being ground zero for that, you know.
It's the greatest. Oh yeah, happening when it happened, when it aired, it was absolutely insane. It was like 10 a.m. too, which was crazy. But I really do feel like that's the kind of stuff that really resonated with me the most. So I decided to make a channel, videos about it, a series about it. And I think dissecting each episode and seeing the themes of each episode was really something really relevant with me that stayed with me, because you got to see a little bit more of the detail behind each episode and the artistry behind each episode, not just with what they were trying to communicate with the plot, but what they were trying to communicate in terms of the themes of the show. So just exploring that a lot more was super impactful. So it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed every discussion you've had, man. Like you said, like the show invites examination and dissection just from every episode, and so that's just been such a big part of why I think obviously it grabbed everyone to just go week by week asking what's next. And now what's next for the show is we're going to dive into the nitty gritty of the whole thing. We're going to get into the finale, the thoughts about what we felt about it, everything. And Andres, do you want to tee us up for getting us through the next section for these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to start with you, Adonis, since you've been the last one to speak. You were the first question on the other one. So let's start with you. As far as your thoughts going into the finale, what did you think of the finale? And if it lived up to your expectations as far as what you were looking for?
Yeah, it's so interesting, too, because I think a lot of us that have seen the show from the beginning, like first season coming out, there was so many, like that first season, the second season had a gigantic gap in airtime. Like I think it was like 2 or something, at least 2 years, right? Or more than that.
4 years.
I was going to say it's way more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
you could have went to college in the time that it took for to come back. Like,
so it was, I think that's kind of been, if the ones that have been current with the show the entire time, it's kind of been a thematic thing of like, we're going to wait a while to have this thing be finished. So I had already read the manga in 2019 or 2020, I forgot what it was, but I had finished it when it had finished. I was like, I need to just finish this because if I get spoiled, I'm going to be irate. So I had already read it. So the final season, even though it took 3 years to finish the final season, I kind of already remembered some of the things that were going to happen. But for me being in film, reading the manga felt like storyboard. That's literally what it felt like to me. Like it's written and drawn and illustrated like a storyboard. So like me and my best friend are reading this on Twitter, on Twitch, and I'm like, dude, like this is like, you can see when a flashback happens in the story. Like it was just such a weird thing. So in my head, I'm like, I can't wait to see this animated. What are the tones going to be? What's the music going to feel like? Like, I'm just thinking of it from that perspective. So in my head, I was like, I don't know exactly what to expect in this last section. I just know it's going to be a lot of action because obviously that's what took place in the manga. And I didn't know if if they're going to, do a different ending than the manga was going to. And my biggest thing is I just kind of let what the storyteller wants to tell, and then I go from there. The idea of having these, your ideas of what could be and all that, I think it taints the idea of what the author was actually trying to get across. So I just kind of let my, thoughts on that kind of sit aside. But I loved it. I didn't really have any expectations other than the fact that I just wanted to see it animated. I just wanted to see it and enjoy that ride with it. I do wish it would have aired sooner. I think those that had, the reason why I say that is it's such a high stakes moment. And for those that haven't had the ability to watch it close to the previous episode, it takes you away from the tenseness of the situation. So I think that's the only gripe that I have about it. Is like, I really wish now watching it full from start to finish, if you could watch it in its entirety back to back, I think people will appreciate it even more. But it was such a ridiculous piece of work. So much work went into that last episode. I was like, Jesus Christ. But I love the music. The music was awesome. I think how it wrapped up was spectacular. The concept to me is still really dope. Even though it did change some stuff from the manga, I liked both. So I wasn't really team this or team that. I liked it regardless. But yeah, I think for me, as it stands as a completed story, a completed anime, it's ranked number 1 for me at the moment. I watch a lot of stuff. So for me, it's definitely number 1 as far as an anime completed story for myself, but fantastic.
Yeah, I want to jump to you, May. I know we talked a lot about previously heading into the Attack on Titan finale, and then obviously afterwards, we've talked the last week. I want to get your thoughts as far as what did you think of the finale, and if there was anything that maybe you would have changed or that you would have preferred ended differently.
Right. So with me, I'm an anime only. I stayed anime only the whole time, and I stayed spoiler free miraculously somehow throughout the whole Attack on Titan journey. Big thanks to my mods for that. And yeah, with the ending, I had no idea what to expect. You actually asked me what were my predictions, what were my theories, and I had almost zero because I could not just see how they were going to wrap this up. I could see I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't think of where it could go. I had a few things that I really wanted to see happen. For example, Levi killing Zeke and keeping his promise at the very end. I had to have that happen. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't be satisfied. And I wanted to see Falco. I had a theory that he would fly, so I wanted to see him fly. But other than that, I had no expectations. I think I never even imagined anything that could have happened. I didn't imagine that it would go this way. It took me completely by surprise. And obviously, I had a lot of expectations because of the manga having coming out and what everyone was saying. I obviously had no spoilers, but I had heard so many mixed things about the ending. People hating it, people loving it, people comparing it to other anime, like Code Geass was a big one for that. And me just trying to think what could possibly cause such a controversy in the fandom that there's such a split in how people felt about it. So going into that finale, I was like, okay, I might like it, I might not like it, but let's go in completely blind and see what it's going to be about. And I was on the side that loved it. I really, really loved the ending. I think that finale from start to finish was spectacular. It was so well done. Animation, music, everything. The voice acting, especially for like specific characters, like Armin, I think his voice was so good in this finale. And everything. I think I love how they brought things back, like old soundtracks, for example, where they played like every big soundtrack in that episode, and I loved it for that. It felt almost at the same time as like being a finale and like continuation of the anime. It also felt like a goodbye to the series and a tribute to it at the same time, with how much they brought back things from the old seasons. And the story itself, the finale, how it ended, I have no issue with it. I think it was the only way it could have ended, and a perfect ending, in my opinion. I don't call many things perfect, but for that, I think it stuck the landing so well. And there's nothing I would personally change about it myself. I don't think there's nothing that, if only I could make it longer or see a little bit of what happened after. But I think with the time that they had and what was written, the story itself, I think it was perfect, and I loved it, and I cannot wait to watch the whole anime again from the very beginning, now that we have the ending, and experience it as a whole and just connect all the little details, because Attack on Titan is so good with the details and connect, like, oh, this happened back then and this happened then, and it's all connected together. That's what I can't wait for. So yeah, finale, incredible. Nothing I could say more than perfect.
Now, I want to jump to you, Lola, because I know you were kind of getting used to the binge model as far as watching Attack on Titan all in one sitting, having to now wait for these final chapters and then finally getting to it. How are you feeling about the finale? And if there was anything that you were concerned with or would have changed?
It was awful waiting for it. Like, I think we watched, I think we just like timed it perfectly when season 4 part 2 was airing. We were somewhere close to catching up then. And so we just waited for the part, I don't know, 1 and 2 specials, whatever they're called at this point. And so, I mean, I just like binging, because I think when time passes, you just, forget certain details. And like when we were starting this, like I remembered my theories, but like I couldn't pinpoint exactly why I was thinking some things, because like it has been a bit, but like, I mean, I remembered most of it. Like going into this last episode, we were both so nervous. I remember us sitting for like 2 hours and just like not playing it and be like, should we play it? Maybe not. Maybe let's just keep it a bit longer. And like everyone, I think since we started watching it, I have heard very mixed things about the ending, which is always like a bit of a scary thing, because like you don't know if it's gonna end up disappointing you as well. And I think like while we were watching it, at some point, I think in season 4, I kind of realized that there were a lot of people that were like legitimately Jaegerists, and they weren't like kidding about it. And so like I thought like, well, and like if there's so many of them, then I guess they are the ones that are disappointed. And so I was feeling pretty good about it. And so then we were a bit late to watching Attack on Titan because Milna was in the country. And in the meantime, people were like commenting on our Patreon, like people who have watched us being like, I'm so nervous if you're gonna like it. And I was just like, why? Why are you so nervous? Like I think like, you know our opinion, so what? I don't know what is awaiting me. And like my main thing was like the show, like details I can survive. Like I don't care how certain things are necessarily gonna be done if the heart of the show and if the point of the show is like what I always thought it was. And so like that was my main concern, and I really was kind of confident that they were gonna like hit that where it mattered for me. Like I kind of had an idea, and I think like we were right. I thought there was no way for Eren or Zeke to survive, and those were the only two deaths that I would accept. And I just knew I was going to be very disappointed if Falco and Gabby died, because like then the purpose of the show would make no sense for me, you know, because like they're kids and they're this new hope for the world. And so everything, how it ended to me was just perfect and was very valid for all the characters and for what the show has sort of said from the beginning. I think now looking back on season 1 or anything, like there are so many scenes that tell you exactly what the show wants to say and where it's going. I think it was kind of pretty clear. I think the only thing with the finale was that I was just like, that was an hour and 20 minutes of chaos all around, and I was just taking it like I was processing scenes like 5 minutes after they happened, and like I don't know how to process this scene that I'm in right now. Like I'm still processing the previous scene, and so just like a lot of things were happening. But I think just like even on the rewatch immediately, like when you know things are going and like when you can watch it a bit more calmly, I just think it's perfect. Like I really think they hit every important bit that I wanted them to hit.
Yeah, that's one thing I took away from the finale as well, is how overwhelming it was, just because it was like an hour and 20 of just like so much information, so much emotion.
For 20 minutes, like after the, you know, this part, we were just like, okay, take 20 minutes now. Like they're not gonna
spoilers. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Commercials, they're like not gonna give me the room to breathe, so we just like paused and like walked around a bit and then just sat down to continue.
Do any of us think that we would have rather have seen this busted up into 20-minute segments, like actual episodes over 4 weeks?
That. I feel like if the 2 specials were just like a season of like 10 episodes or whatever, I feel like that would have, you know, given you time to just like sit on some things, you know?
I'm like half and half. There's sometimes I love the just like the straight shot of it, and then sometimes I'm just like, oh, this would have been dope. Till also just, you know, content creation, keep that Patreon rolling. Like no, but you know what I'm saying? Like yeah, that was a thought that I was kind of wrestling with. I think a little bit. It's like how the delivery device, like, but as like a big piece, it's very powerful. It's very overwhelming.
It is.
Yeah, my opinion on that is maybe if part 1 and part 2 had all come out in one season, that would have been fine. But the finale on its own, I would have not liked separated. Right. I think it worked well. Also, I was so glad to not have to experience what manga readers had to experience with these like cliffhanger endings and like the specific things that happened. Hearing where they had to stop and wait a month for a new thing, I was like, no, I'm still gonna go this all at once. It was hard. It was overwhelming to process it all in one go, but I think it worked well for me, and it means you can just keep watching it and keep experiencing it and going through it again and again. But yeah, I needed it like that. I didn't want to wait.
I second that.
Kind of gonna want to go off of what Lola said to Sonny, because Sonny, you and I have talked about the thematic elements of Attack on Titan on your channel, and I know that's something that we've always felt like watching this show was a big concern, right? Going into the finale is like, are they gonna nail it as far as what the show is about and what it really means? Do you feel like it nailed it, and do you feel like you're satisfied with the finale?
Oh, okay. First, like building off of some of the stuff that the other guys have been talking about with just how the finale and the two final parts or specials or whatever they're called, like how they were presented to us, I was also quite worried that, okay, since we only get these two parts, we don't get a full season, we don't get to stay in it and talk about it from week to week, like, is it gonna fizzle out a little bit, or are we gonna be able to maintain that intensity that they rounded off the first special with? And I've seen some people say that it didn't work for them, like they didn't have that feeling going into the finale, that it was just too long to wait. But for me personally, that really wasn't an issue. Like, we were straight back in there with all the characters, the situation that they were in. And I'm also sort of mixed with the whole, okay, should it have been one big chunk, or could they have cut it up into episodes? But then we would have gotten a lot of cliffhangers, and those would have been frustrating as all hell. And then there's all, as Sean mentioned, like the whole content creator thing of it, where I would have liked some more, to be able to do some more Attack on Titan videos, because those generally do pretty damn well. But it is what it is when it comes to that. Shifting to our thoughts about the finale, or my thoughts about the finale. I gotta admit, like, at first when we finished it and we were just sitting there, and you can see it in our reaction as well, that complete emotional overload, first and foremost. It was very, very overwhelming. And when it comes to the themes, and especially with Attack on Titan and what we've been building towards in the final season, this whole thing about this cycle of violence, past transgressions, what it does to us, what it does to humanity, what it did to Eren, what he's doing now, what will the outcome be? And we've had a lot of time to talk about it as well. So in our, I guess you could call it now, like in hindsight, like naivete, we were thinking that, well, this is all leading to like ending that cycle of violence, and that's what Eren wants, and that's why he wants his friend to stop him, because he's the big enemy. He's the big, like the enemy who's going to what's it called? Not divide, but
unite the world against a common
unite.
cause.
Thank you.
Right.
Unite. That's the word I was looking for. Unite.
And everything will be perfect after we're all done.
And everything will be perfect, and that's it. And we've all learned from our mistakes. And I think even sorry, I don't even remember the name of the character, but like the Malian leader at the airbase, like his realization, like, we've been treating these people wrong for all these years, and we have to do better for the future, for our kids. And I sort of feel like Attack on Titan, like, they wanted us to want that and to think that that was possible. But then we get that ending, and it's like, nah. Like, we do end some things, and there is a period of peace, and the Titans are gone. But when it comes to humanity as a whole, no, like, we don't change, really.
Right.
Like, in the end, we're still gonna bomb each other to shit, and like, that's just how it is. So we were feeling kind of deflated in the end, because we were like, no, that wasn't what it was building towards, right? That's not what we wanted. But having time to think about it and let it all sink in, and also getting to see what others thought about it, and that's why it was so difficult to talk about it immediately after, because it was just like, oh shit, deflated, no wait, okay, and that makes sense, and yada yada yada. So like, some people got really angry at us in the comments, because our first reaction to the ending was this, like, oh, really? Was that it? So what's the point, kind of a deal? And then we talked through it and got to, okay, this is what Isayama was trying to say with it. So sitting here now, like, I think I'm really happy with how it all ended. And I think it was beautifully written, and not enough good things can be said about, as Adonis also mentioned, like, the production value of the whole thing, like the music, the acting. I think like they hit all like the big musical themes and notes, like, through the entire finale, and you all, like, we all went like, oh, that's like barricades, and but yeah, to sum it up, after having some time to think about it, I think that this was an absolutely perfect finale. It fits the series to a T, and the themes within it. So I'm just like, well done. Of course, I wish there was more. yes, but also no, because this is perfect. Leave us wanting more. I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, I want to go to you, Rafael, because we talked a little bit about our thoughts on the thematic elements of Attack on Titan and what the purpose of the show was in the end, as far as what it was trying to communicate with its themes. How do you feel now, as far as people you've seen react to the ending? We talked about the bombing of Paradise and what the show has been trying to communicate to these fans and this growing fan base, right? A lot of people who have joined the Attack on Titan fandom in the past 3-4 years, who are now realizing that maybe the message of the show wasn't what they thought it was.
So first of all, I have a slightly different way that I came into the ending, in that I both read the manga, but also I did my interview with Isayama before the episode, so I already knew what he meant by every major plot point in the finale. So even before watching the episode, like, I knew what he was trying to do. But watching the episode, and particularly watching the reaction for it, I was a bit surprised by seeing how much the anime fandom seemed to understand what the show was trying to do, seemingly better than the manga fandom. And I wonder if a bit of the, part of the reason is that we talked about that the fact that anime watchers watch it all in one go, versus manga readers having just like a tiny chunk a month, and then the ending being just what came after the big fight. So you had like a month of sitting with like the cool action thing after, like you're like, oh, it's just the epilogue, really. It's just a conversation. I do think that having that period of time to sit with each part of the story, but then ending with thematics more than action, affected how some people view the ending, compared to having everything in one go and being overwhelmed by everything, to the point where like most of the conversation around the anime is based on the last conversation and the last sort of the credit montage, rather than the big fights or like all the cool stuff that happened before, which I found really interesting because there's a lot of stuff that happened. But I do think, like, for the most part, I've seen people, like as what everyone here was saying, that really understand that the show was always about the cycle of violence, and not necessarily ending it, but understanding that this is probably inevitable. We just have to make the best that we can do with it, and not sort of, just because you know it is happening doesn't mean that you can't still fight against it. And I think that that's a big part of the conversation that's been going on since the finale, which I think I'm very happy to see that, because as we talk, like, just the sort of rise of the Eren fan in this final season has been troubling. But the finale makes it clear that that's very much not what the show is, what the show condemns, and not really what the fandom at large is, I think. So that's been reassuring.
Yeah, I want to go to you, Omni, about the finale, your thoughts going into it, and how do you feel about not just your personal reaction to it, but everyone else's reaction to it?
It's been pretty interesting. Like, I didn't have any expectations going into it. I thankfully also somehow managed to not have it spoiled at all. So that was nice. But like Adonis said, like, I don't have my thoughts. I'll posit theories, but that's kind of the fun of watching things. But I don't get attached to anything unless literally the story betrays itself by going a different direction. GOT. But
Stop reminding us.
Brand broken looking ass. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
yeah, but like, whatever they were gonna do, like, I was gonna be on board for, because like I feel like this was a show that knew exactly what it wanted to say, and like after the fact, because again, I didn't want to look anything up or anything like that, whether it be interviews or details and stuff like that, because that, who you can. Google will feed you something you weren't looking for, and that could be dangerous. But like seeing like the relationship you build with the show over time, the optimist in me, the shonen guy in me is just kind of like, Eren's going to unite them all against him by the end. That's what I want. but no, it's not what I need, and I know that's not what the show's going to give me. Like, I know when I go into it, I wasn't expecting that to happen. That's the naive version of me that's hoping that maybe we can solve this problem. It's that idea that Armin talks about. Is like, I know we're kind of trapped in this cycle, but we gotta at least hope we can get out of it, or it's all going to be lost for naught, and we're doomed to just keep on going. Like, it's not the breaking the cycle wasn't really the point. The point was the fact that they acknowledged the cycle exists, but they also didn't start with a fair hand. They were manipulated by powers that be and given a handicap the rest of the world didn't have. They were basically, once their walls went down, were just open to a slaughter. At the end of the day, it wasn't going to be breaking the cycle. It was going to be at least giving, Aaron's idea of freedom at the end. The only achievable sense of freedom that I took away from it was that they will at least have a fighting chance in this world. At least I will level the playing field so that we're all back at zero, rather than being, overpowered just right out of the get-go. Because if he didn't do what he did, honestly, it would have just been, they'd just be walking all over his friends' corpses. So, like, I kind of get that idea of it. Like, there was no perfect bow tie ending for this show, because that's just not how life works, and that's not how the world of Attack on Titan works. So it is, in a way, its own kind of sobering kind of conclusion to kind of snap you out of the kind of fantasy of it all. So that's one of the things that I loved about that. And there's some people that just kind of can't wrestle with that idea that that Aaron wasn't the hero in the end, that he didn't break everything, and it's not, his friends aren't happy or whatever. Or, hell, maybe he didn't just nuke everybody.
That the impetus wasn't done for like selfish reasons. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just, hey, he bought them 20,000 years of relatively okay peace, it seemed like. But like, he just leveled the playing field. And I think that's what the big thing was. Like, they were put in this box. They had their memories taken away. They had all these decisions made for them. So they were kind of set up to fail from the beginning for sins they didn't have any part of. So it's just letting everybody know, because like, that's the shift of season 4. Once we get to see the enemy's perspective, we get to see where they're coming from. We get to see what they think. And it's just breaking down of those very same metaphysical walls to where we are now seen eye to eye with the people across from us at the other side of the table. And then that's the first step towards hopefully healing, but that's not an easy road, but it's just the beginnings of that. And they weren't on that path before. I don't know. It's just sorry. You just like go off about this thing.
I'm loving this. Can I just piggyback off of this really quick? Because I feel like season 4 at the beginning, if the show started in Marley, you would look at Eren as the enemy. And I love the fact that you're always the enemy to the one you're fighting. Oh yeah. And it's like this concept of like you were saying, the powers that be have told the mass population, this is the enemy, this is and they're the same in that aspect of you know what I mean? So I loved that they really try to tie that up at the end in season 4 in its entirety of like, if you're looking at it from Marley's perspective, Eren and them did the exact same thing that Rainer and Berthold did. Like it's kind of wild to think about it from the people that are living there's perspective.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In their attempt to like maintain the status quo and all that with the Marleyans, they create the Jaegerists and the complete opposition to it. And it's just like, it's the ultimate fantasy, just like reflecting what happens in life. Yeah. For better or for worse. Like we see that every day. And it's just like, that's the world we live in. At the end of the day, how do we keep moving forward? We just have to believe that we can get there someday.
Yeah, I want to jump to you, Sean, as far as your thoughts on the finale. And obviously, we're talking a lot about the themes and what you are feeling about the themes of the show now that the ending has come to an end.
Yeah, I mean, thematically, I mean, I think there's some nuts and bolts thing. I mean, like, obviously, there was like a couple of things where it's like, Mikasa's she's taking that dome. She's killing Aaron. Like that's what has to happen. Like that much I know. I know that Zeke's going. I thought that that Reiner was gonna bite it. I will say this. There was as far as, because I think that some people have compared AOT to GOT. And yeah, great. They share 2 letters, whatever. Like, I don't think that that's a very fair comparison at all. But I think there's like a couple of things. I remember thinking that we were going to lose more people in the conflict. But I'm like a stickler for that. Like, I'm like a Lord of the Rings. Like, I'm like, yo, like Merry or Pippin should have bit it. Like, Legolas or Gimli should have been crazy. Like, I mean, and that's not like, I don't like having those feelings. I just think that that's sort of like what, like it's, and that's kind of what I think brings it over to the thematic stuff. Like, I think, and then there's like just some nuts and bolts thing, like where, I don't know, like Reiner, like wrestling like an alien squid monster in the desert is cool, but like not that interesting to me. Like, where there's other things that I would rather see, like where Armin versus Levi, that's I have emotional stakes in that conflict, as opposed to like, wrestling like a big like those like blow up guys or whatever it was, like, kind of like what it's became. No, seriously, like I was like, I don't know. It's like at the end of like Man of Steel, like where he's like, he has to punch a laser, and you're like, I don't care about that. I care about Zod versus him. You know what I mean? Like there's that relationship, and so there's like some nuts and bolts things that I have a bit of critique over, in my own opinion. And that's just mine. But I do think, as far as thematics, it was immeasurably powerful in so many ways. I mean, like, it was about like the fact that like conflict is started for oftentimes very selfish and kind of like and petulous reasons. Why, like it's kind of just the impetus of just like, I was hurt, I am traumatized, and I'm going to visit that upon somebody else. Like, that was, I think, something that was I think that as far as like the whole Aaron, like, because that's the one thing that like kind of manga guys and Jaegerists and just kind of whatever in general, they're just like, oh man, like, he's not fucking Giga Chad 9000 like Aaron running in and being all cool and sick and shit. And it's like, that's not the issue. Like, all of those guys, all of the Giga Chads are like scared, hurt young men. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that it was just maybe it just felt a little awkward, as far as like some of the, like, it's like where he was just like, I want her to feel bad for 10 years before she's over me, and like what, it was just very kind of specific and whatever. But again, it speaks to his maturity level in that moment, so I think it was just, and I think that there's just some other, that's kind of why I wanted to trade more of like less worm wrestling and like more some stuff with that is kind of what I want, is maybe what the trade-off is, like, because I'm boring like that, but the two things that I think really drove it home is that it's not, and it sounds cheesy in the way that I'm about to put it, but as far as like the destination, as far as like the a solution to this problem, and to be naive enough to think that you could enact a solution, whereas it's the struggle that makes it important. It's the struggle, and how we struggle, and how we maintain our values, how we're able to like an element of self-sacrifice, of glorious purpose, for anybody that was watching Loki like recently or whatever, being like, maybe I don't know if anyone else is going to be able to shoulder this responsibility, and I don't know if it will necessarily mean in the end, if it will necessarily mean that we're successful in the end at reaching some type of I guess like peace or whatever, but the struggle is what it is. And I think that was indicative of two scenes that I thought illustrated. It was the conversation between Armin and Zeke was the most beautiful crystallization of that I have seen in almost any media. He's holding a leaf, and when Zeke looks at it, it is a baseball. And it's about, and those are the moments that we're trying to protect. Those are the moments, it's not this grand, it's not this grand shining city on a hill type of thing. I'm trying to protect the things between a father, between a mother, between a friend, between a brother, a sister. Like, that's like the type of stuff that we're fighting for. And then the other one is the scene in which the crowd is passing the baby. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we have death on one side, we have death on the other side, but we know that we're going to try to do everything that we can to buy ourselves as much time as we can if there is a way out of this. Even though objectively we're completely screwed on either side. You know what I mean? Or at least it appears that way, unless they stop, unless luck happens, unless life happens, you know? And so I think it's the struggle that kind of, and how you do it and how you maintain yourself and how we can maintain each other, you know, as a people, like, I think is kind of the thing that I think is what really wrapped it all up. And this is just one thing that somebody on our Discord said, and it kind of blew my mind. If you go back to the flashback where Aaron is kind of like walking around like in Marley for the first time, and I think it's that flashback like when they kind of get drunk with everybody, but it's early in the day. The first time that he cracks, he's walking in the street and he looks up and he sees a couple, and there's a pregnant woman holding like a loaf of bread, and that is the woman that fell off the cliff with the baby. And like, and you just like, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, it's so
I hadn't put that together.
No. And neither did I. The internet did it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not taking credit for it. Like somebody hit me with it, but it's like, you go back and watch it, and that's what the rewatch is going to be able to do for people and stuff. And so and so I think that in that sense and in that way, it's about the beauty of the struggle, and that's really that's what illuminates people as to who you are. And that's like hero, you know, introspective storytelling, like 101, like, you know, like when the chips are down, we all are so capable of so many grand and beautiful and horrible things. When the moment of truth happens, who do you reveal yourself to be underneath your regular clothes? And like, that's kind of the moral, I think that's the kind of like the moral sort of button of the story that I think is so powerful, you know, and that I think will withstand the test of time, you know. And everything.
Yeah. I want to jump to you, Abby. I know you have a lot of thoughts.
No, I know you all have said, like, I just want to. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take so long. I'm so sorry. Like, honestly, just real quick though, to jump back, just about this anime, just the animation itself and the music, it just brings me back to something Guillermo del Toro said, I think in the last award show he was at, where animation is a medium, not a genre. And it just spot on, because while like we have amazing shows like Game of Thrones until the end, and, you know, like Breaking Bad, and it's just like there's so much power in that, but something that anime itself, what the Japanese have like based and like been able to just like send to the world sometimes with their storytelling is just so beautiful. And just like the music paired with the action, paired with the trauma and the sorrow and the happiness, it's just like, this is the finale I was waiting for. I had no expectations, but I was well, no, that's a lie. That's a dirty lie. I knew we were gonna have a kick-ass fight. I knew like Levi, my husband, was gonna go kill Zeke. I knew that was gonna happen. I figured Eden was going to die. I thought there were going to be a lot more casualties, but I'm happy, honestly, with how it ended. And, you know, honestly, listening to y'all too, and I had this thought at the very end when I was finishing the episode, it reminded me of when Ultron and Vision were having a conversation, right? When Vision was about to knock him out. It's just like, you know, humanity, they're doomed. And, you know, Vision was just like, yeah, but, you know, it's beautiful. And, you know, they're in it together. Look what they just did against you, brah. So it's just like, it's just the same thing where it's just like humanity is doomed no matter what. Like the cycle will always continue, and we saw that and at the very end with, you know, the bombing and stuff. But it's just like, it's those moments in the now and what they're able to do, what they're able to remember. It's just like, yeah, we are all people, we are all living, we're all trying to just like do the best we can for our neighbor or our best friend or our lover. And guys, I don't know, this show just really, like, the action was fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I think the most key moments for me was like what you were saying, where it's just like Zeke and Armin talking. And when I saw that freaking baby, I'm not gonna cry, right? But just the freaking fact is just like, life finds a way. Sorry, Jurassic Park. Life finds a way. While people are, while there's freaking,
we have a baby. Yes, and they're passing her. Yes, like or whatever.
His shirt off. I would love that for Jeff. But yeah, it's just like that, and that's the point. And it's again going back to. It also, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place because you all just said so many amazing points. But again, it's just like that. This is life. This is humanity. We are screwed up. We are at fault. We are always going to make a mess of things. But there are people who are just like, even though it may be crappy, we're still going to fight. We're still going to help our brother out. And it's it's just so beautiful. And I was hoping for this camaraderie where everyone would somehow get together at the end, even though again there's bombings later on, but like in this moment it was beautiful. And I keep thinking back to, I'll answer this later, but like Hanji again is one of my favorite characters because she was really the character for me in this show who made me wake up and realize what this was really about. Sure. And it's this like being able to hear the other side, empathize with the other side, kind of put down our own pride to work with the other side for a common goal, even though we're all doomed. So it's just like, I don't know, this finale took my breath away. I wanted it to be a movie. I'm glad it was a movie. I didn't want to freaking wait for nothing. I was going to throw something at the TV if there was a to be continued. No more of that.
One more year for another.
My freaking windows. Sorry.
We're doing the meme. Like,
but like, I mean, I can't say enough. Just every single one of you said so many powerful points, and I think that's the whole point of this show is us to have all these different opinions and thoughts and like be able to be like, yeah, that's it. There's so many things, and that's humanity for you. Humanity is complicated. Humanity is messy, but like we're beautiful at some point.
I think nature is kind of messy, and nature is beautiful.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen like a mother just like, yeah, it's like I had a couple, I had a litter of kids. One's kind of like not too great, so I'm gonna eat that one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's
biting off the head.
You know what I mean? Like so,
yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
I mean, like so, like I think that it kind of reflect. I think like our humans, like and obviously a bunch of other creatures, but that's a big superpower is having meta thought. Is about thinking about why we do things and how we do things and changing. Behavior and stuff like that for the better. That's kind of that's our superpower and shit. And so like that's so anyway.
So absolutely. That's
well said.
But we get that a lot with a lot of shows where it's like everyone's just like humans are stupid. Humans can't figure it out, and then we figure it out. Like or some of us do, and then like we overcome that. So like so many themes, but this show just painted it so beautifully in such a unique way. So shout out again. Just amazing, amazing.
And going off of that, I think the whole message it kept saying was this world is cruel, but it's beautiful. They said it again and again. That's exactly what it was.
I also feel like, if I could jump in a little bit, as far as the theme of the show, I know that's our next point, Eric, that we wanted to hit on. It's hard to like sit with that question, right? Because I made a little short video about what I think Attack on Titan means or what it was all about. And it's so hard to digest that question. What is Attack on Titan about? Because it makes you feel like it's about so many things. It's about war, violence, humanity, the beginning and end of life, hatred, overcoming fear, all this kind of stuff that really is just super existential, nihilistic type questions. But to the conclusion that I came was it was about generations. It was about passing the baton or investing in the next generation, where you have to care about the young people and the earth that the young people are going to inherit. Otherwise, there will not be an earth to inherit in the first place. And I feel like that was the purpose of Gabby and Falco. That was the purpose of choosing Armin versus choosing Erwin, where that look in Armin's eye of hope and of just looking at a better day, and perhaps a day can be better, perhaps there can be hope into looking at this world, versus Erwin's perspective of just overcoming the enemy, was something that Levi went out of his way to choose. And I feel like that was just seen in so many different episodes of Attack on Titan, where it's Children of the Forest, with Sasha's dad, whether it was the baby scene we saw at the end. Like, it really made it a point to show you, like, there was a purpose to saving Gabby and Falco. What if would have flocked threw them out of the airship. Like there would it not be a flying Titan.
King
there would not be.
King
Flock
the god.
Oh my god.
Lord,
That's another thing. That's another thing that I feel like they're trying to say, though, because I do feel like investment in our youth, investing in our young people is so important because that's the next generation. And if we don't have the answers, then maybe they do. And if we can't overcome this hatred or violence, maybe they can. And I feel like at the end of the show, when we see that the Jaegers have taken over the island, we don't know if perhaps if there wasn't a Jaegerist taking over the island, there could have been a better path. There could have been a delay to that bombing. Maybe there wouldn't have been a bombing. But I really do feel like showing you that the Jaegers took over the island, and that investment into military might, into fear, essentially, is what they're investing in on Paradise now that the Jaegers have taken over, is a dangerous thing, and it can lead to a cycle repeating itself. So, Eric, I'll let you take over, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. The next section is our open floor. We're just going to kind of like what we've been doing a little bit here, you know, talking about the Thor's themes and everything of the show, but we're going to kind of keep it more open so we can jump on each other for our thoughts here. So the first question is, was Aaron right? Just kidding. No, that's not what it is. It's really just what was the theme? What was the main message of the show that you took away from it? We've touched upon that a little bit, but we'll go back. I'm going to start from the top here for what I can see. Lola, what do you think was the sort of main theme or message you took away from the show?
Oh, God. I think at the end of the day, what I took away from the show was even though like every episode someone is dying and someone is killing someone, I think the general message I got from it was a message of peace and sort of that message of like keeping the children away from the forest. Like I thought it was really strong in that. Like I don't think that Eren was right. Like I thought the best things about it were sort of even though like this, especially for like our scouts and everything, because like they were really put in a horrifying situation, having to fight against Eren and having to fight against their own people for something that is like right, like you're saving people outside of the walls who all want you dead, but like genocide is not any type of answer. And I just think like talking, even though like what we have been saying, that like the cycle does not end, like eventually someone's gonna start bombing something, because like everyone said, as long as humans exist, as long as there's like two people left alive on Earth, they're gonna find something to argue about.
Cain and Abel.
Yeah. But I just think even though like that is gonna be an outcome always at the end of the day, you still have to like keep moving, not in the way that Eren says keep moving, but just you have to keep moving, and you have to argue for that peace and make sure that the way you raise those next generations, like either your kids or whoever is around you, that like to make your environment the best that it can be. Like there's just like so many small moments, like again to go back to the baby, but like I feel like from the last episode, that is maybe the most impactful scene I had in that moment. Just like it seems so futile, like they're on the edge, like the baby is about to drop and everyone is just pushing that baby, even though like you maybe give it 2 seconds longer to live. Like it seems pointless, you know, and everyone is still doing it. And I just think that was the beauty of the show. I love that it never fell into this nihilistic point of view. Like I thought the ending was pretty positive. Like even though again, you see the bombs dropping, it didn't leave me feeling like, oh, there's no point. The world is just this way. It just left me with a lot of faith in people, and that like people are gonna try their best always to fight for peace, even when it's not easy. So I just think that is the thing that I got from the show. One of the like scenes that I think I remember most clearly in season 1 when it happened. I spent like the rest of Attack on Titan thinking about it. As I was watching, it was this conversation between Armin and John. I think it was the last episode of season 1. They were talking about how basically in their fight with Titans, because like that's where they were at that point, how Eren has to become a monster to fight these monsters. And John makes the point of asking, like, if he does become that monster, is that really going to be a win for humanity? Like, I think when I heard that, I sort of felt where we were going to go with Eren's character. And again, I think, like, from the get-go, season 1, the show was pretty clear in its storytelling about Eren, and that is not going to be a win for humanity. Because, like, at the end of the day, Eren, everything that he did, of course, he loved his friends and he wanted to save them. But, like, he was also moved by a very selfish goal from, like, a kid who just wanted to see the world empty. And he didn't get that. And so, like, this is a thing that he chose from a very selfish nature.
Right.
And
yeah.
Sorry. Go.
No, I just wanted to agree with you, because I think you're right. Like, the idea of, like, the baby, the imagery of that, the futility of, like, what that means, and Eren's, famous phrase, fight, fight. And that's what Armin repeats at the end. It's fight. It's the idea of, like, the fight isn't the literal fight that the show wants you to believe in. It's a fight towards peace. It's a fight towards the oppression of the cycle of aggression itself. That's kind of like the main theme I took away from it. And Rafael, I want to hear what your thoughts are about all those themes as well.
I think, like, we pretty much everyone's been nailing it. Just, I think at the end of the day, the show since the very beginning was about staring at the darkest places of humanity and recognizing that we can turn what's beautiful about us ugly because of fear, and then looking at that but refusing to back down from the fight, and just continuously showing that it is worth appreciating the little moments of peace in between all the horror. I think, like, the first thing I ever brought about Attack on Titan was how, despite even the first season being so pretty much like a action horror show, it gave me a lot of hope in a weird way from the very beginning. Even just in the small things, like Armin constantly talking about the book he saw as a kid with, like, the pictures of the outside world, not knowing whether or not that was true or fantasy, but just hoping that they would be having hope in something. And then in the finale, just as we talked about already, the scene of Armin and Zeke, and particularly Zeke, the person who's the most nihilistic in the whole show, the person who literally thought that killing people was a relief, like he was saving them from the cruelty of life, realizing that, I should have spent my time just enjoying the nice weather. And the last thing he does before dying, you're like, it's a pretty nice weather today. I think that was the ultimate point of the show, just, like, trying to enjoy the little things, even when everything's horrible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That is such an important part, like the weather. Again, the little things they say, like, that's usually, I think people feel disenchanted by the idea of, like, we didn't win, we didn't fix anything, everything's kind of the same. But it's like, it's not about winning in the grand scheme of things. It's about, like, maintaining those small things and make sure those things can continue to exist and thrive on. And Adonis, I know you said you had to run too. Do you have a time to give your sort of, like, final thesis on it?
I guess for myself, since the beginning, it's always been, I'm a perspective guy. And for me, it was about perspectives, especially once season 4 happened. I was like, holy crap. Like, we're a lot of us, we're always the main character of our story. So, we rarely get the opportunity to see something from an opposite or opposing view. And usually, birds of a feather flock together. So you're usually surrounding yourself by people that think the same, that share the same. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So sometimes when you hear something that's opposing, your trigger reaction is, that's wrong. That's not it. Like that. So I love the fact that you kind of get to see that in season 4 of the exact opposite of what you've been hearing. And it was just, it's triggering because it feels like you're watching it. There's like a mirror effect to the show for yourself. And I feel like every person can find something in the show that you kind of like cringe at yourself sometimes, like, oh, like, it's a weird introspective type of viewing experience. And I remember my partner, she had started watching the show as of I think last year, and new to anime. And she was like, I can't watch more than an episode at a time. And I was like, Oh, I know. Like I like, it's like sometimes you have to like take a second and like go take a shower. It's like I just need to cleanse off really quick because it's such a deep show, especially if you're used to watching shonen, where some of the meanings and some of the storytelling is very surface level, and there may be some underlying thematics there. But this show is so deep that I can't even imagine trying to binge it for the first time. And like I wouldn't be able to do it because it's that rich in the content quality. But yeah, I think the perspectives in the show are incredible. So for me, that's something that I just took. I tell people all the time, like if you are into deep storytelling and don't mind sitting back and really thinking about what you're watching, this is the perfect show. Because you need to think about it. It's not a, hey, let's sit back and relax and eat some pot. It's not that type of show. Like you really want to be invested in it to really get what you can get from the show. So yeah, I absolutely loved it.
I was just going to say, like, piggybacking off of that idea real quick is like just the tribalism aspect of it and like the shifting perspectives. Like it's ironic when that is challenging the fan base and they're propagating what the show is talking about and they don't realize it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a big part of it because like I think we've all experienced it here just through the comments in the fandom. It's such a huge part of like as you the viewer, as you are reactors, like you have like sort of like an objectiveness to it where like you're part of the art form that you're providing is like I have to accept what is being presented to me very objectively so I can give a very sort of honest opinion and answer about it. Then like what Sean was saying, people come into this with a lot of like, emotional confirmation bias. They're like, you have to understand the way I understood it, even though you hadn't had time to digest it the same way they had. And that's such a huge part of like why these things sort of like escalate. And it's very indicative, like you said, of the show, the way people get rooted in their stances and their positions on things. And for me, it was just like the real beauty of the show. I think Abby, you were saying with Hanji.
Hey.
That episode where I think it's like the Dawn of Humanity, like where Hanji is sitting and we see the scout regiment behind her, like all the fallen people with Erwin, everyone. That line she says like she's talking to John, and John is going back and forth saying like if they cause this because they attacked us, like if we stop now they'll come back again, if we do this and that, and then she just kind of stops and she's like, genocide is wrong. Like we can justify either side till the end of time, but there has to be a line somewhere. And to me, that was always the climax of the story. To me, it was like the story is ultimately saying that both sides can have like an infinite number of justifications for why they feel the way they do, why they're doing, and you can believe that's their conviction. But there has to be a line somewhere. Otherwise, it will come to it. It will all come to an end because like, we had to have a line. And so, yeah, I just wanted to feel like, yeah, that was my thesis, at least on that whole thing.
Can I jump on? Do you mind if I go next just to jump on, of course, piggyback off of you? Because like there's obviously many themes in this show, but that honestly is the one that it hits me the most because I'm very empathetic. Like me and my friends have a lot of conversations where it's just like, we have a conversation and it's like, oh my gosh, I've also gone through that in my life. And like, we're able to like get together and kind of, even though it's different situations, we're able to empathize and kind of just have a bit more understanding to each other. And I think, again, my favorite scene will be Hanji and the goddamn soup that she provided to both sides. And they all had, what a way to get people together is food. And the fact that, you're able to hear these different traumas, these different fears, these different angers. And, and we saw that again with Gabby, like she became such an iconic character with the thoughts of just like, well, this is my side, we're right. And she got slapped in the face when she saw, Sasha's family and everything. And it's just like, that is a big part of why humans can survive, is because some of us are able to let go, not even let go, but just being able to breathe for a second and know that these are also people and they've also been hurt and they're also scared and they're also angry because they've lost their loved one. And not so much being like, oh no, you're cool, but just like, okay, I hear you. I hear you, and I see what you've gone through, and this is what I've gone through, and just conversation is just such a powerful thing that a lot of people, like the Chads of the world, just want to be, so in their own opinion, like, we're right, this is what they say and that's right, versus being able to step back and be like, well, what's going on with the other side? Like, how did it get to this point for them? And that's a big step that a lot of people can't do, or they're not ready to do that yet because they have their own internal hurt and fear. And so seeing a lot of these characters being able to, again, not necessarily let go of the past, but being able to at least hear their neighbor, hear the enemy, and work together in the end, that's a big part of humanity. Like, I wish we're one of the few people or species that can do that, where it's just like we're all from different areas, but at the same time we can communicate and hear each other and work towards a goal in the end, even if I don't know, it's beautiful. So like empathy and perspective is such a strong theme. Again, I think that's why some viewers get mad at us, especially the Agorists, because it's just like they want to be like, no, this is right. And it's like, bro, you're missing the whole point of the show. Yeah. Like, you got to be able to hear the other side. Different perspectives are important. So
right. And Sonny, I want to know what you thought about, like, what was the kind of takeaway from the show for you?
Yeah, like I was really wanting to jump in there anyway, because like what I talked about with, like, it's so interesting watching, well, how people watch this show, and especially with what happened in season 4 when we started shifting perspectives, and that's also like a really big thing for me as well. I love to see things, love to hear things from other perspectives before I make an opinion about anything, and I think that is one of the things that it's a bit of a lacking quality sometimes with us humans, is that we are just not willing to see it from another perspective, and especially from the perspective of our enemies, so to say. So like seeing the fan base react to the beginning there of the final season, and okay, we're getting to know these other characters on the other side of the sea. We're getting to know Gabi and Falco, and like Gabi in particular, because her journey kind of mirrored what I think a lot of fans went through, just like on the opposite side. So like where most or a lot of viewers who came into the final season and just having experienced the first 3 seasons, they were just like I don't give a shit about anyone in Mali. Fuck them, because of what happened to these characters that I love, and like this story that I know, these people that I know. And they were just like, a lot of people definitely not willing to listen to anything Gabi had to say, because he was just horrible and obnoxious. And why is she so dead set on her side being right? But then those fans were also kind of doing a lot of the same things, whereas like they were so dead set on the people from Party and like on Eren being 100% right in this, and then seeing Gabi go through that, and with Sasha's father, and that the whole beautiful scene with the children in the forest, and like that's one of my personal favorite moments from the entire series. Seeing her slowly realize that, I hope and I think a lot of viewers went through the same thing, and that is such a big thing of Attack on Titan as well. And the point that many of you guys have already touched on is just like this very human experience, and what is so unique to us as a species, where we can be introspective about some things, and like we can analyze what's going on. We're not just living it, we're not just doing it, but we are very like we're thinking beings, and we do that at every turn. So having ultimately what I think, and what I think themes wise was the big takeaway in the end, and again, a scene that many of you guys have mentioned, is this conversation between Armin and Zeke with like, what is the meaning of life? And Zeke is such a nihilist, where he's just like, he's only seeing it first off like the meaning of life from purely a biological standpoint, where it's just like we're just like reproduce, and like that's all we do. That's the meaning of life. and life is so horrible. So like it would be better if we just didn't exist at all. And then again, like that beautiful scene with, it's like Armin is holding a leaf that means something to him, and Zeke sees the baseball that means something to him. And so it's these seemingly insignificant things throughout our lives, but that's what gives it meaning. And that's and especially in connections with other humans. And that's what Ymir was seeking all the time. Like that's what Eren then actually realized, that what she needed was these connections. What Eren then gave her was the connection of just like acting out on pure anger and hatred from what has happened to her in her life. But there's just so much more to it. And I don't know, again, I don't know about you guys, but like my mind almost like overflows with like just thinking about these things, because it's so layered and it's so true to how we live our lives in a series with big ass monsters we're eating people, and like it's not about that in the end. It's about humanity and what it means to be human. And I think that's just like the most, it's simple, but then not, because being human is not simple. But I think they captured that beautifully, and that's why we can just keep talking about it like this. Yeah,
there's so many themes that like overlap with each other, but don't feel conflicting or too much. Like they all flow well together.
Can I just say real quick, just again, like that scene, you again have all mentioned it, but the freaking scene with the baby. First off, like it absolutely ruined Kat and I completely. We're done. So we almost took a break, or like Kat, I think Kat said that I almost just got up and walked after that scene. Oh, it's just so heavy. But I hadn't thought about it until you guys and we all started talking about it in the way where like how it's connected thematically to keeping the children out of the forest and doing something for the next generations. And they are literally taking the next generation up and trying to save them. And yes, the doom is right there. It's always going to be right there, but we must
on
have
every
hope.
side.
We must have hope that.
And there was no hesitation either.
No hesitation.
They weren't even
it was almost instinctual.
Exactly. And that's like thematically just so beautiful, because that is ultimately what it's about. The hope that in the end we can get past this in some way, shape, or form. It might never happen, but we must never stop trying. Even with a cliff right there and colossal titans right behind us, never stop trying.
Life finds a way.
So I have a few main themes, or like even words that I want to take away, that I took away from the show myself. So I hope you don't mind me talking about the few things I thought. There's a few there. The first one would be freedom, which is a big thing, but not Eren's kind of freedom is what I'm talking about. What I took away from it is, at the end, we obviously saw that war was a cycle and it kept coming and going, and it was inevitable. And I really like that for the realism that it brought into the world. I think into the show, like it was very realistic. But in the terms of freedom, it was how, despite all that, we are still free to choose how we live our lives and what we make of life. And I think that really rung true with, the conversation between Armin and Zeke. But for me, what I took away from that was the little things in life. Armin saying, I think I was born to run up that tree with Eren and Mikasa, or I was born to read that book during the rain. All these little things that he saw his life being. And Zeke, again, with the baseball, just throwing and playing catch. That was the most important thing in his life at that point that he realized. And I think we are free to make of life what we want. And it's these little details, these little things that make life special to us. And even though life is a long thing, hopefully for most of us, and it can be filled with violence and trauma and sadness, it's the memories of the good times and these little tiny things that you, in the moment, you don't think are important, but when you look back on them, they make your life, they make you who you are and what your life has become. I think that's what I took freedom to be in the terms of the show, rather than Eren seeking that freedom, but rather our freedom, how we choose to live our lives, is what we're free to do. We may not be able to control a lot, but we can control how we want to live our lives and what life means to us. So that's one of the big themes for me that it really made me look at my life, myself, and how I've lived it and what I remember and what made me who I am and what my life is today. So that was something that I really loved about that. Another thing I think is love. Obviously, Aaron was doing everything he did for love, for the people that he cared about. And that rung so true again and again, especially when we looked at his perspective at the very end. He did all of this for love. And that's kind of what breaks my heart, because he wanted to be a part of it all. He wanted to be there with everyone, and to continue loving everyone. But for his love, he had to make a sacrifice like this. And obviously, a lot was done for that. But in the end, it was for love. And again, also Mikasa, her love, she loves Aaron. But despite that, she had to make that sacrifice for the greater humanity. It's just the complexities of love were explored so well in the anime, and just people loving each other from a different sides, being on different sides, but learning to love each other as well in that sense. So I really, really like that. And then lastly, I want to talk about vulnerability. And the scene specifically that I saw this in is that scene when Aaron breaks down, when he's talking to Armin. And I absolutely love that scene. And it broke my heart to see how many people actually don't like it and that ruined the anime for them, or the show, or the whole story for them. When I saw that, I was like, how is this not getting through to you? I love vulnerability, and I love seeing a character being vulnerable. And when we finally saw Aaron break down to who he really is, it showed that it's okay to be vulnerable. And yes, he might not be this edgy Giga Chad that everyone wants him to be. Everyone was like, oh, it ruined Aaron's character. But I'm like, this is who Aaron's always been.
Mm-hmm.
He's never changed. This whole of season 4, he's been putting a facade. And that is very true for a lot of people who feel maybe kind of weak inside. They make a facade for themselves. They put on a mask to try and be someone else and to try and be accepted by other people. But in reality, Aaron was just kind of holding back everything that he truly felt, where he wanted to be with Mikasa. He wanted to keep living. He didn't want her to move on. He wanted to be a part of this life. He didn't want to do this. He just saw it the only way to protect everyone. But in reality, he felt a lot. He had a lot of feelings, and it wasn't easy for him to do this. And it hurt him. And we saw that even back in part 1, when he cried to the child saying, I'm so sorry for doing this. The vulnerability is there. And I really, really appreciated that. And that's why that scene is so special to me. It's not cringy like people say.
It's not cringy. That's why
exactly.
People say
it's
that.
Not.
People who say that need to look in the mirror, because they're the ones who are not able to be vulnerable. I'm calling y'all out.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Because people it's also another way is people sometimes have a kind of person that they want you to be. I think that's even true for us. Some people want us to be a certain way, or they imagine us a certain way, but people having to need to accept that that's not who Aaron is. A lot of people struggled with that, and that's why they didn't like it. But I straight away saw who Aaron was and accepted him for who he is. And Armin in that moment did too. And accepting that this is who Aaron really is. Aaron never really changed who he was. This is him being vulnerable. And in seeing that, he was able to share in Aaron's burden and to accept him for all that, and to be like, okay, you're gonna have to do this alone. Like, I'm here with you. We're gonna go to hell together, and it's not just all your fault. And I think that is what's beautiful about vulnerability. It's about making those connections with people and just showing who you really are. Because I'm all about vulnerability in real life. I love being vulnerable. I love sharing that. I think vulnerable moments are the most special ones in life. So that's why I really, really resonated with that scene. And I will fight anyone who says they don't like it. That's overall my 3 things: freedom, love, and vulnerability.
Omni, I know you mentioned just a little bit about the Icarus and kind of your reflection on that. Do you have any sort of final thoughts on the show and what it kind of meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's touched on a lot of similar things that I've had. Again, there's so many things that you could pick about this show, whether from the symbolism, from the just in your face themes to this the subtext of it all. We've kind of touched on a fair amount of it. So finding something new, I've been trying to do that. I'm taking notes throughout. I was like, what have we not talked about? But one thing I wanted to talk about that kind of piggyback off of what Sonny said, and also what May said, was that there's this idea of existing. It goes to Zeke's outlook on everything when he's set there face to face with Armin, who's it's two people who are viewing the same thing from a completely different point of view, and he's coming to a very, very clean, sterile, and detached, biological, almost like, you know, a doctor, scientist, or anything like that. Not to say they're all like that, but like like where you're trying to keep yourself removed from the equation, right? So what he's talking about is existing, and Armin's talking about living. And it's one thing to just be here, but are you experiencing the air? Are you experiencing the sense? Are you experiencing the warmth of somebody beside you? Or are you just existing to just be there? Like surviving and living are not the same thing. We have this battle, this thing that physically represented that in this parasite, whatever you want to call it, because when Zeke talks about the evolution of life and its purpose is propagation, but we only see this one thing that preyed upon Ymir's vulnerability in a moment because it couldn't do that by itself. It had to prey upon her and use her to propagate its line. You know, it kind of in itself was physically that embodiment of what Zeke is talking about. It preyed upon her love, trapped her in this cycle, propagated through her children, the Eldians, all throughout life to kind of spread its seed and became that power of the Titans that kind of plagued the world. And it never evolved. Like it's still that single-celled organism that started everything, and it never grew beyond that to, like, we can reflect, examine, think, or anything like that. It just wants to survive, and it preyed upon her. And this whole thing started, and she got trapped in this thing because, like you said, was her love for this king that didn't see her in the same way, that abused her and all this kind of stuff. And it trapped her, and that anger, all these things she pent up, passed on in different ways to the Nine, to Aaron, who became that rage. And is he cattle? Like that line echoes all the way back to that when they're talking about, you know, what are we fighting for? Like, what are we fighting for? We're just sitting in here. We're just like, we're trapped behind these walls. We don't see what's out there. You know, we're no better than the cattle we herd for food, because that's what they are to the Titans at the end of the day, with the way that the world's been structured. And the only way to get out of that is the same way they got into it, was love with Mikasa and her love for Aaron. Like, the only thing that can break that thing is something that this entity, whatever it is, we never got an answer for it, and I'm fine with that. I think Zink's explanation is good enough because it just, our ability to do more than what life biologically made us for allows us to break that cycle that we are kind of trapped in by nature itself. And we can do great things for each other, for other. We can also do terrible things. It's all that kind of stuff. So like existing life and all that kind of stuff, like the polar opposites of that philosophy is one of the core things that I've been holding off on talking about. And then one just small little thing that came to mind when Sonny was talking about the Titans themselves was, and this just kind of clipped in my head because of this whole thing, this idea of tribalism and the other, you know, in this way to manipulate. And it's something we see in history today in all kinds of different ways, is once you realize that this enemy they've been fighting the entire time is just them being used against them by the external oppressive force, the Marlians, to keep them contained and in check and distracted, it kind of is this physical representation of the propaganda dehumanization machine. Not to get too into the woods about it, because they are deformed, they are caricaturized, they are hideous human amalgamations turned monstrous, but at the end of the day, they're just us, and we don't know any better because we didn't learn any better. We're not looking past that surface. It's this show's so good. And that's another thing. Like, you talk about rewatching it, like these things that like make you go back and look at things from a different perspective. And like and I know he talked about this, he said this, but like he had the end in mind when he started. And that's so apparent when you go back and are watching this, because watch enough anime and be like, you're figuring this out as you go. I know you are. And then like, you didn't plan for certain things to fall in. Some things might not sync up all that right, but like this is that show that like you can definitely see there was a meaning and an intent the entire way through, because it's not like there's no out of place moments when you're going back and watch it. Like there's purposeful language used, there's purposeful
The dialogue.
foreshadowing. Like going back and watching and watching like Reiner and Bertolt and their choices of words in certain conversations, you're just like, oh my God, it was always there. You were saying it to my face.
Yeah,
so good.
Yeah, the loop of like Aaron's consciousness, I think, just reflects like the loop that we're going to go on with the show, watching it again and again and again, just to live through it
That's
again.
another thing. He himself became the cycle that only somebody that loved him could break.
Yeah.
That's very well said. Yeah. So Andres, I want to like ask, again, we'll close it up here. What is your sort of final thought on the show? What it was trying to say? What's the takeaway from this whole thing?
I mean, I feel like you guys have said so much already, so it's kind of hard to jump in right now. But I do feel like at the end of the day, hope is so hard to find in this kind of dark world, right? Where it's just so pitch black dark that it's difficult to look at what is hope inside this world. And yet everywhere Attack on Titan finds hope, in my perspective, is in the next generation. Who can find it next, right? And we see that with Armin, where Eren sees fire and anger and hatred towards the Titans in season 1, we still see that Armin has this idea of hope, and we still see that Armin has this different perspective than what an Eren has. So even though they're from the same generation and they've experienced similar horrific things in their upbringings, they can find different perspectives to what the issues of the world are and how to tackle those issues. So I do feel like a lot of Attack on Titan is about finding that hope, finding that person inside the next generation and investing in that next generation so that they can discover that hope. And I do feel like that's inside the character of Falco as well, who experienced horrific things in his upbringing in Marley, where he was basically cannon fodder and trained as a warrior his whole life and cast aside as being less than his entire life, something that maybe even an Armin or an Eren or a Mikasa didn't experience, because they experienced a lot of classism, but they didn't experience that type of internment zone racism where they're placed in these kind of camps and treated like this. And yet through it all, we always saw this glimmer of hope inside of Falco, even when he was in these horrific situations. So I do feel like the purpose of Falco having his wings and literally flying and soaring above these kind of expectations and ideologies of hatred and anger and violence, where he can be the one to lead the next generation into a more hopeful kind of perspective. I do feel like that's important, because I do feel like a lot of people are going to look at Attack on Titan and say, the cycle repeats, war is back, humanity is going to do what humanity always does, which is kill each other. And yet I don't feel like that's what it is. I really do feel like it is about finding that sliver of hope that still exists. Like Armin says to Zeke, my friends are fighting fear right now. So even though 90% of the world is submitting to fear and they're afraid and they attack and lash out in this fear, my friends are fighting against that. And they're choosing to destroy Eren regardless of what that might mean to them, where they're choosing the right thing to do because it's the right thing to do, not because they're going to end up on top. So I do feel like finding that next generation to lead ourselves out of this black hole that we're placed in is important, in what is Attack on Titan is trying to say at the end. Because again, I keep going back to the Jaegerists, but I really do feel like Paradise could have had a chance to even extend its level of peace if it wasn't this kind of idea of like fear of retaliation of the outside world, is what Historia says in that outro. And I'm like, we're back to fear of the outside world, instead of realizing that people like Onyakopon, people who are from the outside world and want to try and see beyond this hatred and violence and fear, is possible. And we should try to reach that regardless. And we maybe shouldn't invest in military might and shouldn't invest in fear, but invest into peace and into the next generation. And I think that's why that kid at the end, I know we haven't even talked about it, but I think that's what that symbolizes. It symbolizes through it all, there is another generation that's going to come about. Through it all, life lives on, and it's inside this kid, and hopefully this kid can see something different than what this previous paradise saw.
Yeah. Can I say something quick to that? It's just the kid is just like the symbolism of the kid finding the cave versus Ymir finding the cave, where Ymir is doing it in a panic and trying to get away, being chased by dogs, and this kid is just finding,
with his
exploring, and he's like with a dog, like
And
it's
it's hopeful.
dog, friendly dog, and it's hopeful. So it's like, okay, this is like a little sliver of, okay, it might repeat, but this time it could be better because of
even if that thing is in there, you know, it latched onto Ymir's fear or hatred or all that. If he goes in there, like, sure, if that thing is still there, if the power of the Titans or whatever it might follow, because that's just manifested from Ymir, her vision for, you know, creating the paths and all that stuff. It kind of like manifested her will in a way. So that could look completely different for him, because their introduction to that tree, that cave, like artistically is very different. When we see it as Ymir, it's faded, it's sepia, it's just this ominous thing. But when he stumbled upon that tree in the wake of all of that desolation, nature had reclaimed the world. It was bright, it was green, the sun was out, it was shining, the sky was blue, and the tree was just a tree. And he was just walking around with his dog. Like, if you go in there with that kind of mindset, like, if that happens, like, you know, parts of it may continue, but it's better than where we were. If it were, that there's a hope that it could be, at least, you know.
I think that is just indicative of what the sort of, you know, broad concept of the Titans is for the show, and then the ultimate thesis of the show is like humans are like really the issue of like why this aggression, you know, cycles through. The Titans was just like a tool or like a power that was being abused by those people. This next generation, as you're saying, Andres, can find that same power. Maybe they can use something, use it for better. You know, they don't have to use it through the trauma that they were experiencing when they found it. I think that's kind of like a great way to sort of put a button on this whole thing. We'll start to wrap it up here because I know it is late for everyone in attendance here. For at least our European friends. I know he went on to go on forever. I mean, we're just barely scratching the surface of what the show is, like, really. I mean, I've already talked to like my significant other about it for, you know, hours on hours since the finale aired last week, and we're going to go on talking about it, like, I think forever. I think it's a timeless story, like, really. And that's what the beauty of it.
100%.
As long as people will be around, like, the story will be relevant and it will be applicable to our personal lives, to the world. And I just really appreciate what's done. Also, just like, you know, here, like being able to chat with people from around the world about our thoughts on this thing, and just like that in itself has a power that I think is like something I will never not appreciate. So we
Going
will
off
wrap
of that
up here.
really quickly, I
Sure.
can't wait in 10 years time to see people come to this anime having it in the
yeah.
same size as like Naruto and Bleach and all those old ones. This is now that big classic old one, and then experiencing it for the first time.
For real.
I'm definitely gonna show it to my son.
Me too. Because I have
in about 18 years.
Not soon, yeah.
And I'm just getting my kid into Demon Slayer, so I think we'll hold off.
Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, today. You guys, the participants, the audience, for watching this on Monday, as we're going to go out in a couple of days after this is recorded. We really appreciate anyone who's here to, again, celebrate the show, what it's meant to us for the past, like, for me at least, for a decade now. Going off, just waiting for like the ending. I'm honestly grateful that I have lived to see the ending. That's honestly what ran through my head when I finished it. I was like, I'm glad I got to see it. Like, I'm glad I'm still here, and that we're also here. So thank you so much for joining us. We will catch you on the next episode of this Crossing the Streams, a new series coming from Passion Fruit. If you saw this on YouTube, please like and subscribe, all that great stuff. If you find us on the newsletter, please subscribe to that as well. Visit passionfruit.com for more news on content creation and creators' labor issues. That's our bread and butter. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Three, two, one.